Sauce here. This is a video lesson on basic shapes. Let's take some notes. I'm going to draw 3 very common basic shapes, and also take the opportunity to review and introduce some vocabulary terms. Here are our 3 shapes and their names: square, rectangle, triangle. Much more can be said, though. A square has these properties. It has 4 angles, and each of those 4 angles are right angles. The measures are exactly 90 degrees. If a shape has 4 angles and they are not 90 degrees, it cannot be a square. Make a note that this type of notation is the notation to say that that angle is a right angle. So it doesn't need to be spelled out if we're using the symbol for it. A square also has 4 equal sides. It doesn't matter what the measure of the sides are, as long as all 4 sides have the same measure. And to show that by notation, we use tick marks on the side. When we use the same number of tick marks, then it means that the sides with the same number of tick marks are equal to each other. Make a note. Same tick marks means equal sides. We may not know the measure of the sides, but if we know that they're all equal, then this is a square. We also have a shape that has 4 sides and 4 right angles. But if its sides are not all equal, if only sides that are opposite one another are equal to each other, so we use 1 tick mark to say that these 2 sides are equal to each other, even though we may not know their measure, and 2 tick marks to show that these 2 sides are equal to each other, then we have a rectangle. A rectangle has a base that is a different measure than its height. A square has a side all the same measure. We usually typically use the variable s to stand for the side of a square. A triangle may have equal side measures or different side measures. It doesn't matter. However, a triangle, we often focus on one side and call it its base, has a height that is not necessarily a side of the triangle, but the height of a triangle must meet at a right angle to its base. When we have these sides labeled, we're able to write formulas for their areas. We can calculate the area of a square if we know the measure of a side by multiplying a side times a side. Or we could say sides squared. And we want to remember that this is an S and not a 5. A square's perimeter being the idea of the distance around the shape, or the sum of all the sides of a shape. The perimeter of a square can be a formula 4 times the side length. A rectangle's area formula is its base times its height. A base of a shape does not necessarily need to be at the bottom. In this case, the base was labeled here, and the height, so the area is that base times height. The perimeter, the sum of the sides of a rectangle, is going to be 2 of the base sides plus 2 of the height sides. The area of a triangle is a little more sophisticated. A triangle is half the area of a rectangle that has the same base and height. The area of a triangle then is its base times its height divided by 2, or times 1/2. And remember, it doesn't matter which side we label as the base, but in a triangle, the base and the height have to meet at a right angle, and the height is not necessarily a side of the triangle. In this case, the height was determined by this dotted line that meets the base at a right angle. The perimeter of a triangle takes much more sophisticated mathematics. So we don't have a formula or an equation to calculate the perimeter of a triangle. That could be difficult to calculate in many cases. I'm going to take the opportunity to label 3 important common vocabulary terms that relate to shapes. When 2 sides meet at a point, we call that point a vertex. Vertex is singular, vertices is the plural of vertex. So we could say that a triangle has 3 sides, but it also has 3 vertices. A side is a line that connects 2 vertices. And when 2 sides meet at a vertex, it creates an angle. The right angle symbol is like a little square. If you want to use notation to highlight an angle that is not a right angle, we use a little arc. Let's point to that arc and remind us that we're labeling an angle.